I'm Richard Clarke. I record these talks every day as a way to deepen my inquiry. Listen each day and deepen your own practice. Welcome. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is from Talk 618, Part 2. Maharshi, the non-self must be got rid of in order to realize the bliss of the self. Questioner, how is that to be done? Maharshi, see wherefrom the thought arises. It is the mind. See for whom the mind or intellect functions, for the ego. Merge the intellect in the ego and seek the source of the ego. The ego disappears. I know and I do not know imply a subject and an object. They are due to duality. The self is pure and absolute, one and alone. There are no two selves so that one may know the other. What is duality then? It cannot be the self which is one and alone. It must be the non-self. Duality is the characteristic of the ego. When thoughts arise, duality is present. Know it to be the ego and seek its source. The degree of the absence of thought is the measure of your progress toward self-realization. But self-realization itself does not admit of progress. It is ever the same. The self remains always in realization. The obstacles are thoughts. Progress is measured by the degree of removal of the obstacles to the understanding that the self is always realized. So thoughts must be checked by seeking to whom they arise. So you go to their source where they do not arise. The questioner asks how to rid themselves of the non-self in order to realize the bliss of the self. Sri Ramana Maharshi responds by pointing to the source of thoughts. He explains that thoughts arise from the mind, which in turn functions for the ego. By tracing thoughts back to their origin, the ego is seen for what it is, a construct dependent on mental activity. When the source of the ego is sought, the ego disappears. Ramana highlights the problem of duality. The moment you say, I know, or I do not know, you've created a distinction between the knower and something to be known. This division belongs to the ego, not the self. The self is one and absolute, beyond all subject-object relationships. If there were two selves, one knowing the other, there would be separation. But that is not the nature of reality. What creates this illusion of separation? The ego, which arises through thoughts, specifically the thought, I am. Existence is always real, so that am part of the statement is true. The part that is false is the I, the imagined sense of separation. He points out that thoughts are the obstacle to recognizing that the self is always realized. The less the mind is caught up in thoughts, the clearer the recognition of the self becomes. However, this does not mean that the self itself progresses. The self is never absent, never hidden, never in need of being attained. What changes is only the degree to which thoughts obscure this recognition. Ramana Maharshi offers a direct method for checking thoughts. Ask to whom they arise. The answer is always the same, to me, the ego. From there, the inquiry continues. What is the source of this me? By turning attention inward in this way, thoughts lose their hold, and what remains is the natural state of the self. The essence of his teaching in this passage is that there is no need to get rid of the non-self as if it were an external thing. Instead, by examining its nature, its imagined reality dissolves. The self is already free, already full of bliss. The only task is to stop identifying with what comes and goes. Thoughts, mind, and ego. To rest in the ever-present awareness that is the self. So know yourself and be always free and at peace. In 40 verses on reality, Ramana Maharshi explains the nature of the self, the ultimate reality, and self-inquiry. My new book, with my comments and inquiry questions, opens these teachings up and brings them into your practice and experience. Available now from Amazon. Link in the video description. These videos bring Ramana's teachings into your direct experience. Click subscribe to see more. Click thumbs up to like, and send questions and start a dialogue with a comment.